Hello, Year 7, and welcome to the first of what I am hoping will just be 2 lessons where we are working from home. We're going to be starting a new topic, which I will go on to explain. Try and think of this as very much a typical lesson, but instead of me standing in front of the whiteboard, going through a PowerPoint, you are just watching me on a video instead. So I hope you've been able to print out a copy of the sheet, but don't panic if you don't have access to a printer today. You can just copy this down, just put the title Algebra 1 in your book, and the objective be able to simplify expressions by collecting like terms. Feel free also, if you are copying things down, and if I happen to speak a little bit too quickly, to pause the video to go back and play this again. So we are starting a new topic today. We're going to be doing some work on this for 2 lessons, and hopefully then I will see you back in school. We are doing some work on algebra, and quite often with algebra, there's a lot of preconceptions that algebra is something that is difficult. Okay, and what we're going to see today, as long as you can add and subtract with numbers, then you can do a little bit of work with algebra. It is not a problem at all. So what we're going to be trying to do today is we're going to be writing out some expressions, and we are going to be collecting like terms. So the way that we write these expressions, we're going to be simplifying them to make them look easier. And what I've written so far, it says when collecting like terms, we can add and subtract the same letters. And sometimes these letters are called variables. So I've done some pictorial examples, some examples with pictures to begin with, just to get a feel for how we could write things algebraically. Now, I'm sure you've already seen that I've got 3 pencils and I've got 2 pencils. Yes, I've got 5 pencils. But how I could write this with algebra is I could write this first picture is 3p. And I've just used the letter P for pencils, but it could be whatever letter I want this to be. And this would be representing 2p, 2 pencils. Okay, I've got 3 of them, I've got 2 of them. And if I was to add those together, 3p add 2p, well, all together, that would be 5p. So each of these is expressions, and this is a calculation with algebra, and I'm writing the answer in an easier way. 3p plus 2p equals 5p. Let's have a look at another example with pictures. So in my next example with pictures, yes, we know I like donuts. I don't think I'd be quite wanting to eat this many donuts, but I could certainly give it a go. So could I use a little bit of algebra to represent this? Well, perhaps this is one pile and this is another pile. I have got 5d and I've got another 3d. And if I was to add those together, let's think what I would have all together. 5 of something and 3 of something all together would make 8d. So 5d add 3d equals 8d. Now, sometimes in algebra, things get a little bit more complicated, and we might have more than one variable, we might have more than one letter. So, for example, I've drawn some pictures here of some bows and arrows, but I've not got the same number of bows, I've not got the same number of arrows. Now, since A comes before B, and I'll use the letters A for arrow and B for bows, makes sense. Since A comes first, I'm going to think about what my A's are. Well, I've got 2 A's in this picture, but I've also got 3 bows, 3 B's. So that picture I could say is 2A plus 3B. And in this picture over here, I've got 4 arrows, which I could write as 4A, and I've got 1 bow. Now, I don't actually write 1B. If I just write the letter by itself, B, that actually means one of them. Now, if I was to add all of this together, Well, this time I can only add together the letters that are the same as each other, in which case I can only add my arrows together and see how many arrows I've got. And I can add my bows together and see how many bows I've got. So 2A and another 4A would be 6A's. And then I've got 3B's and another B, so that's 4B's. So I've got 6 arrows and 4 bows, so 6A plus 4B. Now, of course, with algebra, we're not going to be wanting to draw pictures all the time. We're going to be just wanting to write out the statements. We are going to be wanting to simplify the expressions. And this is a much more typical question now. How do we do the written questions when it is just algebra and numbers? So what we know so far is we pretty much add up the letters like they were numbers, but we can only add together the same things. So let's work through some of these examples, and I'm also going to show you how you might use some different colours just to illustrate what is going on. And that becomes even more important when we start introducing some subtractions and some negative symbols, as you will see. So my first further example is 3x plus 2x. So they're both the same letter. I've got 3 of something, I'm adding 2 more, so that is 5 of something. So 5x. 5y, add 4y. So altogether, 5 add 4 is 9. So this is 9y's. 9y. This time, let's try a takeaway. Now, you don't need to try and picture something that begins with Z, zebra, but it doesn't really matter. We are doing 7Z take away 2 Zs. So if I have 7 Zs and I subtract 2, I would have 5 of them left. I would have 5Z. Now, you've probably seen how I'm writing some of these things, and I was going to talk about this at the end, but it's probably a good time to talk about it now. When it comes to writing numbers and algebra, I want you to think of writing this as the number being the size of a capital letter. So you know we've got capital letters A, B, C. We've got lowercase letters which are smaller. So when it comes to writing algebra, think of a number as a capital size letter and think of the letter as a lowercase letter. And if you're trying to do this funny X, it's like a backward C and a forward C joined together. Now, there's a reason why we do a funny X, and that's because we already have an X like that in maths that means multiply. Okay, there's another reason why we do these things different sizes. If I was to write 5 S and I wasn't a very tidy person with my handwriting, well, a 5 and an S can look very, very similar. Okay, similar with a Z. You'll see how I put a line through it. If you're not the tidiest of people, if you're not a very tidy person and you did your Z like that, that might look like 52. So again, it's just about being tidy with your work. Anyway, let's get back to these last few examples. We've now got 6t take away 5t. I wonder if anyone will know the answer to this one. Something I've said earlier. Now 6 take away 5 is 1. But I don't write 1. I just write t, because a t by itself means 1t. Let's have a look at this one. I'm now adding 3 things together. A 6a, a 2a, and an a. They're all the same letter, so that's fine. 6 add 2, add another 1, because remember that's 1, would be 6, 7, 8, 9a. So, let's have a look at this one. I've now got some terms in x and some terms in y. And this is where I'm going to use some different colours. I've got 5x's and I'm taking away 2x's, that can all be done together because each of those terms is terms with x. And then I've got 3y plus 3y and another plus 2y, and I can do all of those together. So if I was to think about that, 5x take away 2x is 3x, and 3y add another 2y, well, 3 add 2 is 5, so that would be add 5y altogether. Let's have a look at this next one. Let's see what families I've got. I've got some c's, some terms where the variable is c. I've got some terms where the variable's d. I've got a 9c and another 1c. And then I've got a plus 3d and a takeaway d. So what do you think the answer to this one's going to be? Well, 9c and another c would be 10c's. But let's be careful. The d's, it's 3d take away a d. So I'm not adding, I'm subtracting. 3d take away 1d would leave me positive 2d's. Now, let's have a look at this final example, because this final example is a little bit different. I've got some t's. I've got a plus 2t and a plus 4t. But then I've got kind of some numbers by themselves, what I'm going to call just like ordinary numbers. And the ordinary numbers are another family, another group that we can put together. Okay? So, I could do my t's first, I could do my numbers first. It's really up to you which one you're going to start with. I think I'll do my numbers first. Well, 5 and 1 is 6. Okay, it's not 6t, those are just 6 by themselves. And then I've got 2t and 4t, which is another 6t. I can't add these things together because they are different. So my final answer is just 6 plus 6t. So now you're going to need to go back to my instructions, but I will just also explain those instructions in this video. There are some questions that I would like you to try. You can access this PowerPoint by following the link back in your instructions. And there are 5 lots of questions that you can try. Now, there is way more questions here than what I would expect you to be able to do in the rest of the lesson. So have a look how much time you've got left. Okay. Now, you don't need to do all of these questions. You might just choose to do, I'll do a couple from question 1, couple from question 2, and then I'll move on to question 3 and 4. You might not even get on to question 5 today. But I want you to do a selection of these questions and you move on when you're ready. But I do want you to write the question out. I do want you to write equals, and I want you to then write what the answer is. And you'll also see in the instructions, there are some answers to these that you can check and mark your work at the end. So don't look at that too early. Have a look in the last sort of 5 minutes and check some of your answers off and mark them. Okay, I've also said I will be available in the Ask the Teacher channel if you do have any further questions.